The rain hammered against Marcus Thompson's windshield like angry tears from heaven, each drop a reminder of how cruel the world could be to a man already drowning in his own struggles. His worn hands gripped the steering wheel of his 15-year-old Honda Civic, knuckles white with the effort of keeping the car steady on the slick interstate. In the back seat, his 6-year-old daughter Emma slept peacefully, clutching her raggedy stuffed elephant, the only toy they could afford after the medical bills had swallowed everything else. Marcus had just finished his third job of the day, cleaning offices downtown until midnight, his back screaming in protest with every movement. The $8.50 an hour barely covered Emma's medication, let alone rent, groceries, or the pile of overdue notices gathering dust on their kitchen table. But he never complained, not out loud anyway. Emma was his world, and he'd work himself into the ground before letting her suffer. That's when he saw a tar flash of silver spinning through the guardrail like a deadly ballet, the expensive sports car cutting through the darkness before disappearing into the ravine below. Without thinking, Marcus slammed on his brakes, his heart hammering against his ribs. The responsible thing would be to call 911 and drive away. He had Emma to think about, bills to pay, no time for someone else's tragedy. But as he sat there, engine idling, something deeper than logic took over. His own father had walked away from responsibility his entire life, leaving Marcus to fend for himself from the age of 12. He'd sworn he'd never be that kind of man, and not to Emma, not to anyone. "Stay here, baby girl," he whispered, gently shaking Emma awake. "Daddy has to help someone. Lock the doors and don't open them for anyone but me, okay?" Emma rubbed her sleepy eyes and nodded, too trusting and innocent to understand the danger her father was about to face. Marcus kissed her forehead, grabbed the emergency flashlight from his glove compartment, and stepped out into the storm. The rain soaked through his thin jacket within seconds as he scrambled down the muddy embankment, following the trail of broken glass and twisted metal. The sports car, a Maserati he'd only seen in magazines, lay upside down against an oak tree, steam rising from its crumpled hood. Through the spider-webbed passenger window, he could see movement. "Hey, can you hear me?" Marcus shouted over the storm, dropping to his knees beside the wreckage. Inside, a young woman hung upside down, her designer dress torn and blooded, long blonde hair matted with rain and glass. She couldn't have been more than 25, with the kind of delicate features that belonged on magazine covers, not in mangled cars on the side of forgotten highways. Her eyes fluttered open, a blue as summer sky, filled with terror and pain. I can't feel my legs," she whispered, her voice breaking. Marcus's EMT training from his brief stint in the army kicked in. The car could catch fire any second, or the tree could give way and crush her completely. He had maybe minutes to get her out, and no equipment except his bare hands and sheer determination. "What's your name?" he asked, working to keep his voice calm as he assessed the wreckage. "Sophia," she managed through chattering teeth. "Sophia Chen." "Okay, Sophia." "I'm Marcus, and I'm going to get you out of here. I need you to stay awake and keep talking to me, alright?" For the next 20 minutes, Marcus worked like a man possessed. He used rocks to smash away glass, his hands bleeding as he cleared a path to reach her. The seatbelt had jammed, so he cut it with his pocket knife, all while fighting against time and the growing smell of gasoline. Sophia drifted in and out of consciousness, mumbling about meetings she'd miss and a father who would be angry. "My dad. He already thinks I'm worthless," she whispered as Marcus finally managed to free her from the wreckage. "This will just prove him right." Something in her voice, broken, defeated, familiar struck a chord deep in Marcus's chest. Money couldn't protect you from feeling like you didn't matter. Nobody's worthless, he said firmly, lifting her into his arms despite his aching back. Especially not someone worth saving. By the time the paramedics arrived, Marcus had carried Sophia up the embankment and wrapped her in his own jacket, staying by her side as she shivered and cried. He held her hand as they loaded her into the ambulance, promising he'd check on her at the hospital even though visiting hours had passed and he had to work in 4 hours. "Wait," Sophia called out as they prepared to close the ambulance doors. "Your name?" "Marcus what?" "Thompson." "Marcus Thompson." She nodded, her eyes already heavy with pain medication. "I won't forget." 3 weeks passed before Marcus saw Sophia again. He'd called the hospital twice, but patient information was confidential, and he had no way of knowing if she'd survived surgery or if his rescue had meant anything at all. Life continued its relentless grind of work, Emma's doctor appointments, bills, work again. He'd almost convinced himself the whole thing had been a dream when she appeared at his apartment door. But this wasn't the broken girl from the wreckage. Sophia Chen stood on his doorstep in clothes that probably cost more than Marcus made in 6 months, flanked by 2 men in expensive suits who looked distinctly uncomfortable in his neighborhood. Her legs worked fine and no permanent damage, thank God, but her eyes held the same vulnerability he remembered from that terrible night. "I've been looking for you," she said simply. Emma peeked out from behind Marcus's legs, curious about the pretty lady in the fancy car parked outside their rundown apartment complex. Sophia's expression softened as she noticed the little girl, and Marcus saw something shift in her face, a recognition of what mattered. "This is Emma," Marcus said, his hand protectively on his daughter's shoulder. "Emma, this is Miss Sophia. She was in an accident, and Daddy helped her." "Are you okay now?" Emma asked with the innocent concern only children possess. Sophia knelt down to Emma's level, her designer heels clicking against the concrete. "I am, sweetheart. Your daddy saved my life." What Marcus didn't know or couldn't have known as he struggled to make ends meet was that Sophia Chen wasn't just wealthy. She was the only daughter of tech billionaire David Chen, heir to a fortune that could buy small countries. The accident had happened after another fight with her father about her frivolous lifestyle, her lack of purpose. She'd been driving too fast, running away from a life that felt empty despite its luxury. "I've spent 3 weeks thinking about that night," Sophia said, standing back up to face Marcus. "About what you did. You didn't know who I was, didn't care about getting a reward. You just helped." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Anyone would have done the same thing." "No," she said firmly. "They wouldn't have. I know because I've lived my entire life surrounded by people who only care about what I can do for them." She gestured to one of the suited men, who stepped forward with a briefcase. "I want to pay you back." "That's not necessary. Please." The word came out broken, desperate. "You gave me something I've never had before. You made me feel like I was worth saving, not because of my bank account or my father's name, but because I was human. Let me give you something back." The man opened the briefcase, revealing more money than Marcus had ever seen in one place. Here stacks of hundreds that could solve every problem he faced. Pay off Emma's medical bills, get them a decent apartment, maybe even put some away for her future. It was tempting beyond belief. But looking at Sophia's face, Marcus realized she needed something else entirely. She needed to matter for the right reasons, needed to understand that real worth came from what you gave, not what you had. "Keep your money," he said gently. "But if you really want to pay me back, help me help other people. And so began an unlikely partnership that would change both their lives forever. Sophia used her resources to fund a non-profit they built together, Marcus's Heart, named by Emma, providing emergency assistance to families facing medical crises. Marcus ran the day-to-day operations while working fewer hours, finally able to spend real time with his daughter. Sophia found the purpose she'd been searching for, working alongside Marcus to make a difference in lives that mattered. The little girl who used to clutch Raggedy Elephant now had a college fund and a second mother who taught her that wealth meant nothing without compassion. And Marcus Thompson, the poor single dad who stopped to help a stranger in the rain, discovered that sometimes the best way to save someone else's life is to let them save yours right back. Their story became local legend the night a good man's kindness bridged two different worlds and created something beautiful, because in the end, that's what humanity is, not the circumstances we're born into, but the choice to reach out our hands when someone is drowning, regardless of whether they can pull us up in return. Years later, when Emma Thompson Chen graduated valedictorian from Stanford, a hyphenated name that honored the family they'd chosen to become, both her fathers cried. Marcus with pride for the daughter he'd raised to be strong and kind, and David Chen with gratitude for the granddaughter he'd learned to love, not for what she might inherit, but for who she chose to be. Sometimes the rain still pounds against windows like angry tears. But in their family, storms had become something different entirely. They were reminders that after the darkest nights, if you just hold on and help each other, morning always comes.